Good morning. This is Barry Knapp with Ironsides Macroeconomics. You'll be receiving this on Monday morning, March 4th. I'm recording it on Sunday evening at around 5 p.m. Mountain Time. I'll be on my way to New York City tomorrow morning. And you will all be also receiving the full version of our weekly note. We try and do that every couple of months to give you a sample of what being a full subscriber would entail. You can work through what is a very meaty report this week. We jokingly said in the opening section of the report that our old director of research, Stu Lindy, would have given us a hard time for biting off more than we can chew in a weekly report. Stu was a great guy, by the way, and rest in peace. He's no longer with us. But that notwithstanding, I'm going to keep this audio summary relatively brief. If you watch this on the video version of this on YouTube, by all means, go to the Substack site and read the note this week. And if you're a free subscriber, as I said, you'll get the full note. By all means, go through it. And hopefully that will convince you to become a full paid subscriber. So there were, as I said, it was a beefy report this week. We began with a little bit of a preview of Chairman Powell's monetary policy report to Congress. It begins with the House on Wednesday, moves on to the Senate on Thursday. We then discussed our idea that the Fed is going to start shortening the duration of their portfolio, of the SOMA portfolio, and move back towards the bills only policy that was in place from 1951, roughly, the Fed Treasury Accord that ended the explicit interest rate caps to finance the World War II debt, all the way through QE1 in 2008. We then moved on to the bulk of the report, which was an employment preview. And the title of the report was, in fact, Labor Market Conundrums. So there's questions about the demand for labor, the supply of labor, and the price or wage growth. We then offered our wrap-up thoughts on the inflation numbers that we received. The PCED was the latest one this week, and a little bit of our outlook through the first half of the year. We then, the final section was the earnings recession is over, long live the capex-driven recovery, and underscoring how we have this, what we've been calling unstable equilibrium, where we have very strong earnings for tech and related sectors, which is dragging the S&P up. But if you look at the Russell 2000 or S&P small cap earnings, the earnings story is not nearly as good, and there's a huge dichotomy there, which explains why small caps are underperforming large by such a great extent so far this year. So we think the really important question that will get addressed in the monetary policy report to Congress is not so much the timing of the first rate hike, it's this bank capital question. There was, again, a speech by community banker Michelle Bowman on the Fed Board of Governors last week. We described it as Festivus, the airing of the grievances. She went through her problems with all these sectors. We wholeheartedly agree with her. The administration's ideas, being driven presumably by Lael Brainerd to increase bank capital, are really bad ideas and would impair credit creation, push us back in an environment like the 50s or the mid 2010s, where we had very uneven credit and weak CapEx, quite frankly. Remember, though, if there's a Republican president, even if they were to implement these things, it would all get reversed as soon as there was a Republican president, which you all can see the polls. That's the odds on betting as of right now. As I said, there were two important speeches around this bills only policy. The Kansas City Fed president gave his first speech after 6 months on the job and made it very clear that he thinks the Fed should shrink their footprint in the market, particularly longer term securities. And then Fed Governor Waller at a conference on Friday gave some very similar comments about shortening the duration of their portfolio. We think this is going to be a really important theme. It's consistent with our long-term bearish view on longer-term treasuries, but it would be very good for capital allocation and for the state of the economy. So moving on to the labor market, there's questions about the demand for labor. We do think it's weakening, and you can see here in the chart that I have up, if you're looking at the YouTube version of this, you could see there is some evidence of softening of demand, particularly for small businesses. But there's big questions about supply. Supposedly the population shrank last year, which seems incredible given the situation at the border. But nonetheless, participation went down and the labor market may be getting tight. And that could be contributing to the uptick in non-housing services inflation. So we worked through inflation, and whether we've moved from reallocation, which drove wages up, played a big role in driving wages up, and we're pushing them down to a point when the Phillips curve is actually behaving as it's supposed to, which has not been the case very often over the last 30 years or so. But it was the case in the last few years of the expansion, and could be again as things are coming down post-pandemic. So we then wrapped it up with the earnings recession. As I said, tech and related sectors are driving earnings up. Margins are improving in those sectors. Net revisions imply that the rate of change is still improving in those sectors, and we would still continue to be market weight in those sectors, which puts you at about, if your benchmark is the S&P, about 50% of your portfolio in tech-related sectors. So any more than that strikes us as being reckless. We like being overweight the industrial sector. Lots of evidence that the manufacturing renaissance is continuing apace, and that's where we'd be: tech, materials, energy, and industrials. So that's it. Please have a look at the note, Barry Knapp from Ironsides. Have a good week, everyone. Thank you.